Easter is 2 weeks from today. Can you believe it? 2 weeks. I'm excited about Easter. Easter is, I think, my favorite religious holiday because of the deep meaning that it has, the way that it prompts us to remember Jesus' resurrection. And so I hope that you have already begun extending invitations to others to come to worship. We want to do that all year long because we want people to know Jesus. We want people to be surrounded by the people of God, to hear the word of God proclaimed. But especially at Easter, many are already thinking about it. So 2 weeks from today on Easter Sunday, then make sure that you're letting your coworker know. Make sure that you're having a conversation with your neighbor and talking with that friend who isn't here today. And just let them know, hey, our church is doing something special for Easter. And I'd love it if you'd come with me, come sit with me. And I'd like to invite you to that. And if they have any questions, then I'm sure you know the answers because they're going to be like, what time or what should I wear? And you could say, you could wear a string bikini. No, don't do that. I just want to make sure you were listening. But extend that invitation and let them know the benefits that you have received from being a part of God's church and the way that you can share those benefits with others as we want to invite them along too. So extend those invitations. A week ago today, I gave a poll. I asked about which image comes to your mind when we think about Easter. And so many of you had texted in, and we have some results here projected onto the screen. When it comes to Easter, which symbol do you think of? First, the foremost symbol that we have actually was the cross. The greatest one, 66% was the cross. And then we had 20% with the tomb and a couple others that popped up there at 7%. So if you didn't get to participate or if you chose not to participate in that poll a week ago, that's okay because I'm going to give you another chance to do it. So go ahead and grab your cell phone now and whip that out. And I'm going to invite you to start a text. The number that you will be texting is at the bottom here, 833-515-7078. If you're curious, that's me. So don't say anything too ornery. Don't say anything you don't want your pastor to know. But 833-515-7078, you can text. And here's the question you'll be answering for the poll today. Which of the following is your favorite Easter candy? You got several options. Either the chocolate bunny, jelly beans, Cadbury egg, or something else. Go ahead and write your answer in your message, and you could send that off. I'll give you a moment to send it to 833-515-7078. If you're watching in the video now, you can do that too. Just text in your response and let us know about your favorite Easter candy. I'll collect those responses and share them back with you a week from today. If you fall into the something else category, then be sure to tell me what it is, okay? Because I'm curious. So the sermon series that we're looking at together right now is called Journey Through the Cross. The image that you see projected on the screen is this pathway that kind of goes through the woods. And this idea of the journey through the cross started with Jesus' identity. He got together with his disciples and he asked them what I believe is the most important question. Your answer to this question is more important than any other question you will ever answer. And he said, who am I? First he asked them, who do other people say he is? And then he said, who do you say I am? And they were able to accurately identify who Jesus is. And right after they made that announcement, yeah, we can see this is who you are. Then he said, I'm going to go die. You see who I am? I'm going to die. I'm going to suffer. They're going to arrest me. They're going to torture me. They're going to murder me. I'm going to go die. This was the beginning of that journey through the cross. And I don't say to the cross. I say through the cross because we know it didn't end once he got to the cross. He went through it onto something else, and we'll get there when we get to Easter. The next part of that journey, then, is what we'll talk about together here today. And my hope is that during the next several weeks, in between now and Easter, and 2 weeks from now, that we will actually be able to kind of walk along with Jesus through his journey as we're thinking about what he did leading up to the cross and through the cross, so that we can center our attention and center our focus purposefully on what he was doing. Because I think, I'll take it back, I know that it has a lot to do with our heart, our mind, our lives today. And so I wanted to walk through that journey together, but I got to warn you, the portion of the journey that we're going to take today, that we're going to talk about here today, really goes to a dark place. We're going to brush up face to face with some evil, and it's painful and it's scary. And I don't just read it as if it is a story. I read it as if it points to things that happen in our world today, things that are happening in our lives today, where there's brokenness in the world all around us, but there's also hope as well. So I want to look together with you at that. So we'll get to Mark 9 here in just a little bit, but I want to ask, not by poll, but just by raise of hands, how many of you have ever been stuck in the snow or in the mud when you're driving around? Come on, stuck in the snow, stuck in the mud. Look at all the hands. Look around. Look at all the stuck in the snow, stuck in the mud. At some point, now this happens to me, probably not surprising to you. I've got a story that I don't really want to tell you, but I will tell you about when I got stuck in the mud. I was delivering a grill to my grandma, my dad's mom, and he had warned me. Wouldn't you know it? My dad warned me. Grandma's going to try to talk you into driving off the driveway around the house to drop the grill off there. But he said, don't listen to her. Don't let her talk you into it. And okay, Dad, yeah, Dad. And it had been raining, and I tested it out with my feet, and I even remember thinking to myself, it doesn't really seem that wet. It doesn't really seem that soft. I think Grandma's right. I think I could just pull right around here. And the looks on your faces are like, yep, Pastor, yep. So you know what happened, right? I got that truck stuck. And I did what I think many of you might have tried to do, sticking some 2x4s around the tires and seeing if I could get some grip or anything that was like laying around. What am I going to do? Rocking the truck back and forth to try and see if maybe I could just like get up over that little bump, try. And the more that I tried, the deeper the truck sank into the mud. That is not a fun place to be, because it didn't matter how hard I tried. I was just stuck. I was really, really stuck. And you can already see that's just a silly and laughable picture of how sometimes we get in life. We get a little stuck, where we're trying and we're using different strategies to fix a problem, and we're working at it and working at it, we're working at it, but whatever the case may be, we just simply cannot get ourselves unstuck. So I want you to take a moment and think about something in your life or the life of a loved one. So reflect with me just for a moment. See if you can come up with something that made you feel stuck. You tried to fix it, but you couldn't. Or they tried to fix it, and you love them, so you hope they could fix it, but they couldn't. They were just stuck. Something that's happening on the inside. Maybe it's a physical illness. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's some sort of insurance nightmare. Maybe it's some sort of crippling depression that you are experiencing, and you just want to get out of it, and you're stuck. Or confusion or anxiety, or maybe it's a lost soul that you know. Someone who really needs Jesus, and you've been praying for them, and you've been trying to point them towards Jesus, but they're just kind of stuck, whatever it is. But I want you to identify something. So if you're still not sure, put it this way. If you haven't come up with something yet, if you could ask God for help with anything right now, what would you ask? Okay? If you could ask God for help, because it's obviously something you need his help. You can't do it on your own. So what would you ask him for if you could ask him for help for something? I want you to be thinking about that. There are some problems that we simply cannot fix. And that's the case in the text that I want to look at together with you here today. There was a problem that a family was experiencing that they could not fix. There was this dad and his son, his boy. I know just what it's like to be a dad with a boy because I have a son of my own. And here in this text that we'll look at together in just a little bit, the description of the problem here kind of started very small for them. So this kid, he seemed quiet. I mean, he didn't used to be. He used to talk and tell jokes and smile. And you know when your kid gets quiet, you better pay attention, right? Moms, dads, you remember what it's like when you had a little one and then suddenly they're not making any noise? Like, oh, I better pay attention. Okay, but this seemed to be the case in all the wrong moments for him because it wasn't just that he was quiet. It was actually that he couldn't talk, even when he wanted to. And the dad's trying to figure out, well, why? Why is it that sometimes you can't seem to bring yourself to talk? Are you faking it? Or like, no, I don't think so. I really think something's going on here, but what is it here? And then it progressed. He started noticing bruises on the boy's arms and on his knees, and every kid is playful, right? Every kid gets scrapes and a little bit of bruises, but this wasn't the normal kind of rough and tumble bruising that you see on a boy. And so the dad asked him, well, how'd that happen? How'd you get that scrape? How'd you get that bruise? And when the boy was able to actually speak, because at times he couldn't, then he said, I fell down. He couldn't really explain it other than just, I fell down. And then the dad started observing, this kid falls down a lot. I mean, some people are clumsy, but it seems like he's fallen down more than what a normal kid would fall. Something's wrong. Something's wrong with my son here. And to make it even worse, when he falls down is like the same time when he can't speak. So whatever's happening with his voice is also happening with his legs or his strength or whatever the case may be. And is it related? The dad wondered to himself. And one time he was there. One time he observed when his kid fell down. And it wasn't just like this kind of gentle, like I'm feeling weak and so I think I maybe should sit down. He violently crashed down onto the ground. And when he did so, then the dad realized his son's teeth started grinding, and he starts having this seizure, something that we might consider to be like epilepsy or some kind of a seizure that his body was rigid, and it wasn't just, I fell down on the ground, but he's actually having this terrifying seizure. And so the dad takes him to the doctor, and the doctor can't help. The doctor's not able to figure out what's going on wrong with this kid. And from there, as if, we can even imagine, but it even got worse beyond that, because when they go to the doctor, they have this conversation, and the doctor says to the dad, this isn't physical. The problem that you're having with your son, it's not a physical problem. This is a spiritual problem. It's affecting him physically, where he can't speak, he can't hear, he can't maintain his balance, he falls down, he gets hurt, he's having these seizures. It's affecting him physically, but what's actually going on here is that there's this spiritual entity, some kind of an evil spirit that was attacking the boy. And he wouldn't just fall like, hey, I fall on the couch, that feels nice. No, he would fall into fire because that evil spirit was trying to burn the kid. He would fall into water because that evil spirit was trying to drown the kid. And the dad is thinking to himself, I can't fix this. We're stuck. The doctor can't fix this. It's worse than being stuck in the mud. We need help. What do you need? If you have somebody who's possessed by a demon, what do you need? Say it again? Yeah, I think you're right, Kev. Kevin's saying a cross and some holy water. And who would be the person that would potentially use those tools? Yeah, maybe we would call it a priest or an exorcist. Have you heard that term before? So the dad realizes, I need somebody to either use what you described. This was before Jesus died on the cross, so I don't think he would have been asking for a cross, but asking for someone to get rid of, to cast out this demon, this evil spirit, from his son. And there was word that was getting around about a famous exorcist in northern Israel. This particular exorcist had been traveling around the area called Galilee, that's the northern part of Israel, and when he was there, there was this man in the synagogue, the Jewish place of worship, who had been possessed by a demon there in Capernaum, and the exorcist cast out that demon, and the guy was better. And after he did that, it got really famous, and he did the same thing for a whole bunch of other people in the same place, right there in Capernaum. Then all around Galilee, as the exorcist traveled and oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I am deeply sorry for the way I have wounded your soul just now. As he taught, I preached, I brought. That is horrible. I'm going to edit that out of the video later. As he was traveling around teaching, there's a safe way to put it, then he was also casting out more evil spirits, exorcising more spirits. There was this one point where a group of people who were possessed by a group of evil spirits, they fell down before the exorcist. They like lay down on the ground and they start announcing, this exorcist, this man, he is the Son of God. So the demons, the evil spirits, are identifying this exorcist not just as a person who has power over evil, but a person who is the Son of God. And then the exorcist travels across the Sea of Galilee, still in northern Israel, but he bumps into this guy who was like living in a graveyard. and nuts and naked, and it's a really weird story. I find it fascinating and terrifying all at the same time. Lots and lots of evil spirits inside of this particular man. So many, in fact, that it's referred to as a legion. That's thousands of demons, just horribly ruining a person's life there. And he set him free. The exorcist set that man who had a legion of demons free. And it was at that point that the exorcist shared his power with his followers, the ones who had been traveling around with him, listening to him as he taught, and he gave that power, that authority to them so that they could do it too, so that they could cast out evil. Then he ends up traveling to a couple cities north of Galilee, Tyre and Sidon. He bumps into this little girl who is possessed by an evil spirit, and all of these famous stories, one after another, after another, after another, they're recorded for us in the Gospels, and they were famously known all around northern Israel and beyond at that point. So the dad of this little boy that I'm talking to you about today here, he's thinking to himself, maybe that exorcist can help me. I got to find a way to meet this guy. I got to find a way to get him and my son in the same room together so that he could help my son. And he finds out that this exorcist's name is, can you guess? Come on, we're in a church. Who is it? It's Jesus. Yeah, okay. No big surprise there. It's Jesus. Yeah. And there are 8 chapters that lead up to the one that I'm going to look at together with you today. In those 8 chapters, there are 6 times when Jesus cast out evil spirits. And some of those times are when he's casting out more than one evil spirit. So it's not just 6 spirits here. Could Jesus have helped this little boy? That's what the dad is wondering here. He is absolutely desperate because he's tried everything he can, and nothing he does seems to help. I want you to look there with me at Mark 9. So we're going to start in verse 14, and we'll read that together here. Mark 9, starting in verse 14. There we go. Verse 14 says this. We're reading about a few of Jesus' followers who had just been up a mountain with him, and they're on their way back down to reconnect with the others. Verse 14, Mark 9:14 says, when they returned to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd surrounding them. And some of the teachers of religious law, those are Jewish teachers, were arguing with them. Verse 15, when the crowd saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with awe, because remember, he's famous. They're overwhelmed with awe, and they ran to greet him. What's all this arguing about? Jesus asked. One of the men in the crowd, this is the dad, okay? The dad that I'm introducing to you. One of the men in the crowd spoke up and he said, Teacher, I brought my son so you could heal him. He's possessed by an evil spirit that won't let him talk. And whenever this spirit seizes him, it throws him violently to the ground. And then he foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. And so I asked your disciples to cast out the evil spirit, but they couldn't do it. Can you picture the desperation in this guy's face? Can you hear the desperation in his voice? I brought him, and I thought maybe that you guys would be able to help, but they couldn't do it. And he's got nowhere else left to turn. I really like, though, that in verse 17, he recognizes maybe, just maybe, Jesus could solve the thing that got me stuck. And I asked you to think of something earlier that kind of has been unfixed for you or for someone else. Maybe, just maybe, Jesus could help with that particular thing here. And he recognized that Jesus had the power to heal. There were a lot of people that believed in Jesus' power to heal, either because they experienced it, or they saw it, or they heard about it. And there were some who did not believe that Jesus has the power to heal, just like today, right? We live next to people, we work with people, we interact with some people who they don't believe in Jesus as if he is a real person, as if he is who he claims to be, or they don't believe that he can actually help them. But whether we believe it or not, that doesn't change the truth. Jesus has the power to heal. Amen? Jesus has the power to heal. It's still true today. In verses 17, 18, 20, and 22, it gives all these little descriptions of the things that evil spirit was doing to this poor kid. Part of the problem here, part of the problem there, and it just all kind of builds up with him not being able to speak, not being able to hear, falling down, getting thrown into water or into fire, these seizures, foaming at the mouth, the clenching of the jaw, this kind of stuff. All these descriptions of the problems that this particular evil spirit was bringing to this kid. And I am aware, not very many of us experience or even brush up next to demon possession. That's not something that we commonly see in our day-to-day life. But I do know that we are near those who are maybe not possessed, but definitely oppressed by evil, people who are attacked by evil. Maybe it's even you, if you're listening to me say this right now, where you're facing a very real spiritual enemy, and it's having a very real impact upon your life. And Jesus warned us about that spiritual enemy, that not only do we live in a broken world where things don't work out in an ideal way, but we actually have an enemy who is actively at work trying to attack and ruin and destroy us. And that problem that you thought of a little earlier, there's a spiritual reality to it. Maybe it's quite clear to you what that spiritual reality is. The thing that you feel stuck with, or that you know someone you love is stuck there, maybe it's really obvious what the spiritual component is, or maybe it's unclear, but I'm telling you, there is a spiritual component, because there's a very real spiritual realm. We have a real God, and we have a real spiritual enemy. And the dad here in this text that we're reading about says, I asked your disciples to cast out the evil spirit, but what? They couldn't do it. Now, time out dad in the story. Time out John Mark, who wrote this gospel for us, the Gospel of Mark. What about 3 chapters earlier? It's Mark 6. What about the time where I just barely kind of hinted at it earlier, where Jesus gave authority to his disciples so that they could cast out evil spirits? That already happened. If you read through the whole gospel, it's past tense for them. So he gave them the authority to do it, but here they were with this dad and with the boy, not taking care of business. They're not taking care of the problem. What's the deal there? And before we start looking through our lenses of criticism at them, I think that we should humbly remember Jesus also gave us, you and I, he gave us authority. He gave you and me authority when he sent us on a mission of spiritual warfare. He said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. This is recorded in Matthew 28. All authority in heaven and on earth. How much authority is that? That's all of it. And then he said, go make disciples. Go make disciples. And he said, you will be my witnesses. All this authority given to you and to me. Look at verse 19, Mark 9, verse 19. Jesus said to them, you faithless people, how long must I be with you? How long must I put up with you? Bring the boy to me. Verse 20, so they brought the boy, but when the evil spirit saw Jesus, it threw the child into a violent convulsion, and he fell to the ground, writhing and foaming at the mouth. How long has this been happening? Jesus asked the boy's father. He replied, since he was a little boy. How long? Do you think Jesus knew how long when he asked the question? Well, let me put it this way. When your mom or your wife, I know this only applies to some of us, when your mom or your wife asks you, what did I say about, this is what my mom sounds like, not my wife, what did I say about, what would happen if you did, like, she already knows the answer. Why is she asking the question then? She wants me to think about the answer. She wants me to remember the answer. She wants me to do something about that answer. And Jesus, being God, already knows what he's asking about. He's not confused. He's not lacking information here. He's God, okay? So he's asking this question, how long has this been happening? Which is really more like him saying, I want you to pay attention to the fact that it's been happening as long as it has been happening because that's significant. Make sense? Okay? How long has this been happening? Then, well, since he was a boy, then. That's a long time. Because from this kid's perspective, I'm thinking maybe from the boy's perspective, it was probably like forever. His whole life experience, as far as he could remember, has just been torment. He needed help for so stinking long. They had tried to get help for so stinking long. Nothing had worked for so stinking long for Evs. And that person or that situation that has got you stuck, I'm telling you, there are some people that have been facing a trouble that is left unresolved for so long, a broken relationship for so long, a loved one who is lost and doesn't know Jesus for so long, a problem that we've had that isn't fixed yet for so long that we've given up. We just resolved ourselves that, well, you know what? I mean, I guess if God's going to do something, that's great, but really deep down inside, I think to myself, it's just not going to get fixed. It's just not going to get taken care of. This is how we approach some of the problems that we face that don't seem like they have a solution. Like, well, then if I can't fix it, I just give up. I want to tell you, Jesus has not given up on you. Jesus has not given up on the problem that you and I face. God is still able to heal. It doesn't matter. That's the answer to the question, really. How long has this been happening? The answer should have been, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long, because he's bigger than the problems that we face. Have we forgotten so quickly, church? God is stronger than the most evil thing that we could ever have to endure. God is more powerful than any amount of healing that we need, but we can't work it out on our own. It doesn't matter how long, how big the problem is. He is still able to heal. How long has that person that you know stayed emotionally closed to you, where you want to have a relationship with them and you want to have influence in their life and you want to share the good news of Jesus Christ with them, but they are emotionally closed? How long has it been that person that has been making excuses? You want to see God work powerfully in them to bring about change, and every time that you try to bring it up, they just excuse it away. How long has it been that they've rejected your invitations to have spiritual conversation, that they've rejected your invitations to pray together with you? How long has it been? It doesn't matter. That's the answer. It doesn't matter. God can still fix it. Look at verse 22. Mark 9, verse 22. This is the dad speaking here. He says, the evil spirit often throws him into the fire or into water, trying to kill him. Have mercy on us and help us if you can. What do you mean, if I can? Jesus asked. Anything is possible if a person believes. What a phrase. Help us if you can. I think this dad in the text that we're reading here kind of had more than one feeling inside. And I think you and I are like that a lot. Sometimes we're like, yeah, I think God can help fix this situation. Other times we're like, I'm not really sure if that's going to happen. He thinks this exorcist who's been traveling all around casting out demons could help my son. But I'm not really sure if that's going to happen. So help us if you can. Can Jesus help? This dad, can Jesus help this boy? Nod your head with me. Yes. Yes, Jesus can help. Can Jesus help in the situation that you thought of where you feel a little stuck or your loved one feels a little bit stuck? I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how long you or that person has been stuck there. Jesus can help. But there's an if in the statement. What do you mean if? Anything is possible if what? What did Jesus say? If you. Say it loud. Come on. Believe. If you believe. Come on. I thought this was something that only God could do and I couldn't do it, and so if God's taking care of it, what difference does it make if I believe? What's the deal with that? Well, think of it this way. You wouldn't go to the doctor if you didn't believe that the doctor could help make you healthy. If you believe the doctor cannot help make you healthy, are you making an appointment? If you believe that the doctor cannot get you restored to health, are you showing up at an appointment? No. You got to believe. You're not taking your car to a mechanic unless you believe that mechanic can fix the problem with your car. I'm certainly not giving them my money unless I believe that they can actually get my vehicle working the way that it needs to work. Same deal with like a handyman. You're not going to hire a handyman to do some work around your home unless you believe that the handyman is able to accomplish what it is that needs to get done. Can you see? We have to believe that Jesus is actually able to help get us unstuck out of that mud, to fix the problem that we cannot fix, because if we don't believe that he can help us, we're not asking him for help. We're not going to him for help. We're not depending on him for help if we don't believe that he can help us. So look at the way that he has helped people over and over and over, and look at how he has helped you. Take the time to remember the ways that God has worked in your life, to recognize, I can see God has helped me so many times, and then use that to stir up more belief in you so that you can stand firm in knowing he is trustworthy. He is the one that I believe in. Do you believe that Jesus can help you? Do you? Do you believe that Jesus can help you? If we don't turn to him for help. But Pastor, what if the problem isn't mine, so the belief isn't mine? What if the problem is someone else's? And what if they don't believe? How many of you people fall into that category? The stuck thing that you thought of that you would ask God to help with is for somebody else. It's not for me, it's for somebody else. How many of you fall into that category? Several hands, okay? So then how do you get somebody else to believe? That's the next important question, right? This is our opportunity to show that somebody else what we believe, and to show them the difference that God has made in our lives, to talk to them about the goodness of God, to talk to them about the difference that Jesus has made in our lives. It is our role to reveal God to them. You can't make somebody else believe, but you can point to reasons why they should. And that's what he's asking us to do as witnesses, so that we remember the way that he has been faithful throughout his word that we read, and throughout our lives he has been faithful, and that we want to show that to them by talking about it and by pointing to it. Look at verse 24, still in Mark 9, verse 24. Verse 24 says, "The father instantly cried out, 'I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief.' And then when Jesus saw the crowd of onlookers was growing, he rebuked the evil spirit. 'Listen, you spirit that makes this boy unable to hear and speak,' he said, 'I command you to come out of this child and never enter him again.'" That line strikes me in verse 24. Help me overcome my unbelief. I believe, but I've still got some, I'm not sure, isms inside. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, I think that you could do this, but like, I'm going to need your help to get past this or to get past that. And many of us are there too, right? A lot of us are in the same place. Yeah, sure, yeah, I'll acknowledge that God is the Savior, that Jesus is the one who rescues, that he's the Messiah. I'll acknowledge that, but this thing that I'm facing, or this thing that my loved one's going through, and for the people who we are sent to come alongside them to minister to them so that they can experience the love and the healing and the freedom that comes from God, then we're going to need to help them overcome their unbelief, help them overcome their inertia, help them overcome their doubts. They're going to lean on you and me so that when they aren't quite sure whether or not they believe, when they aren't quite sure whether or not God can make a difference in their lives, they can look to you as a person who has skin. I mean, we can't see God. We can see each other. They're going to look at you and say, oh, I see. You have placed your trust in God. And if you're trusting God in that much, then maybe I can too. Help me overcome my unbelief. So help. Help. There are a whole lot of people that don't believe. In fact, even in the Bible, in the Gospels, we read about a ton of people who didn't believe Jesus is who he claimed to be. And many of them, even his siblings, didn't believe that Jesus is who he claimed to be until the resurrection. That's what it took for them, because they saw him die and come back to life again. What was it for you? I mean, there was a point in your life where you believed. It wasn't that someone else believed for you and they brought you to some church service. There was a point when you believed. What was that for you? What convinced you? Was it one thing? Was it a series of things over time? The things that convince us to believe, that's what we need to be sharing with others so that we can help them overcome their unbelief. And now we see this boy healed. It's going to make all the difference in the world. When the dad couldn't fix it, when the boy couldn't fix it, when the doctors couldn't fix it, when it just went from bad to worse to worse. Now we're going to see this kid healed. Look at verse 26. Mark 9:26 says, "Then the evil spirit screamed and threw the boy into another violent convulsion and left him. The boy appeared to be dead. A murmur ran through the crowd as the people said, 'He's dead.'" Sounds like healing, right? No? I wish you could see the looks on your faces. Why, Pastor, you said he was healed. Okay, all right. No. People look at this kid and they think, he's dead. People are going to look at you when God is at work in your life, and they're going to think, that's no way to live. When we turn away from sin, when we walk in step with the Spirit of God and live a life of holiness, and we say no to temptations, people are going to look at that and say, all your fun is dead. All all of the things that we enjoy that you could be enjoying right now, that you call sin, all that good, which isn't really good, all that pleasure, which isn't really pleasing, it's dead. And they're not going to understand what God is doing in your life and in the life of your loved one who is being resurrected and set free by Jesus Christ. They're going to look at it and say, it's dead. Why would anyone want to give up their vices? Do you have a vice? Do you have a thing that you feel a little bit guilty about when it crosses your mind and you would really rather not be thinking about it? Why would you want to give that up? Every time temptation comes our way, it is based upon a lie. Sin always leads to death. Every time. And the only reason we say yes to the temptation is because we either don't know or don't remember the truth that sin always leads to death. Once you know that, and once you remember that, it isn't alluring anymore. It doesn't tempt anymore. Because we're not tempted to go to death. We're tempted to do things that seem pleasing. That is what it means to be set free by Jesus here. In Jesus, we're truly alive. That's why verse 27 reads, Jesus took him by the hand and helped him to his feet, and he stood up. His life would never be the same. Now, I skipped 2 or 3 lines here in Mark 9 that I want to make sure that we can come back to in just a little bit. But I want to point it out to you now here. When the dad first talks with Jesus, he says, I brought my boy to you to see if you and your disciples could heal him. But could they do it? No, they weren't able to do it. And in verses 28 and 29, he said, when Jesus was alone in the house with his disciples, they asked him, why couldn't we cast out the evil spirit? And Jesus replied, this kind can only be cast out by what? What's it say? 29. Prayer. If we hope to see God actively at work in our lives and in the lives of our loved ones who are stuck, this is not something we're going to be able to do alone. This is something that we need to do with him in desperate prayer. So if that situation that got you stuck or that situation that got somebody stuck led you to just kind of like give up on it and be like, well, I can't fix it, so oh well, then I'm guessing you're probably not praying for God to fix it anymore. We're only going to get unstuck with God's help. He can fix it. We're going to have to ask him for help there. So what are we going to do? We're going to do exactly like what it says in verse 19. I want you to look at verse 19 one more time. If you shut your Bible, just listen real carefully. But whoever's got their Bible open, look at the end of verse 19. Jesus gave an instruction to them. What was it? The very end of verse 19. Oh, Jeremy's flipping his pages back. Well, put our Bibles away. You're ready to sing, aren't you? Jeremy, as soon as you find it, read it out loud, nice and strong for us. Mark 9, verse 19, at the end of the verse, Jesus gives instructions, and we're going to do the very same thing. I'll read the line to you. Jesus said to them, you faithless people. Well, that's not very fun. How long must I be with you? I don't like that part. How long must I put up with you? Well, we really don't like that part. Now here's the instruction. Did you find it? Bring the boy to me. Bring the boy to me. That's what we need to do. We need to bring people into spiritual conversations. We need to bring people to pray with us. We need to bring people to go out to lunch or coffee with us so that we can talk about what God's doing in our lives. We need to bring people into our small groups so that they can experience the people of God. We need to bring people to Sunday worship when we gather together as a church so that they can see and hear and feel God at work in your life and in my life and in their life. Bring them. Bring them to Jesus. Easter is 2 weeks from now, and you know people that we need to bring to Jesus.